The title slide fades in. The Computer Center for Visually Impaired People at Baruch College and CUNY present the Karen L. Gorgie Conference on Visual Impairment and Employment, Policy and Practice, Take Action. On the left is a picture with 10 advocates in CCVIP t-shirts at the Disability Pride Parade. At the bottom is the Baruch College CUNY logo on the left and the CCVIP logo on the right. Coming up, Accessible New York.
Hi, I'm Iris Rosen, and I'm a member of the CCVIP Advisory Board for many years, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker in private practice. And let's see, I want to thank the conference sponsors, the Computer Center for Visually Impaired, the New York State Commission for the Blind, Rosinski and Associates, Hidden City Cafe, the Jolson Foundation, and the National Australia Bank Limited. I'm supposed to remind everybody to put their cell phones on mute or vibrate, okay? And I'm going to give you the bios for our two presenters today. Walei's bio is that he was born in Egypt and raised in New York. Walei has significant transitions in his life, first from one country to another, and then through varying degrees of vision. As a digital accessibility coordinator, Walei makes sure that the City of New York's digital products can be accessed by all, whether it's by conducting website audits, providing staff awareness trainings, or representing the disability community in his everyday life wherever he goes. Walei is constantly changing perceptions one situation at a time. Did I pronounce your name right, I hope?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And then Jonathan is the outreach manager from the New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. As outreach manager, he is responsible for creating digital and print media content to support office initiatives and events. He also manages the office website and social media accounts. So I understand that they're going to talk and alternate, and we'll leave about 10 minutes at the end for questioning, so if you guys can hold your questions till the end, that would be great, okay? So let's welcome them, and it's nice to have this many people here for this presentation.
Can you show me where the mic is? All right. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks to Karen, Bill, and the team at CCVIP for inviting us to speak. So we like to start with what's called an access check. This is something that's been happening in a lot of disability events. So am I speaking loud enough? Awesome. Am I speaking too fast? Awesome. And for your benefit, we will be describing the images in our presentations, and we will also describe ourselves. So I am 5'11". I'm Middle Eastern. I have dark hair, brown eyes. I'm wearing a striped blue shirt and gray pants. I'm also sporting a black cane. Here's John.
How are you, handsome?
Good.
It's relative.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Novick. I am a little person. I'm about 4 feet tall. I am currently wearing a blue button-up, blue pants, and brown shoes, although you can't see them because I'm behind a podium. So, am I speaking loud enough? Yes. Am I speaking too fast? No. All right. Hopefully it doesn't speed up as I go. So, currently I'm going to be describing all of our slides before we, talk about them individually. So, this is our general slide format for our office, the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. In the top left, there's our logo. In the top right, there's a number of accessibility icons that have to do with normally accommodations that you'd find at an event. The first one is a person in a wheelchair, it notes physical accessibility. The second is someone who is using a white cane. So noting, blind, low vision access. The middle is icon for Braille, noting that there would be Braille materials available in Braille. The next one is a hearing loop or assistive listening, not a hearing loop, but assistive listening device. It's an image of an ear with wave lengths, like sound waves coming out of it. And the final one are two hands making what looks like two OK symbols, like your index finger and your thumb coming together, and this notes ASL interpretation would be available. In the middle of the slide is our logo once again and our website, which is nyc.gov/disability. We're going to be talking today a lot about the work that our office does, some of the policies and programs that we've been working on, and a number of resources. And we encourage you to, if not ask questions to us now, check out our website. We have a contact sheet that's available both in large print and Braille currently on the table in front of the podium at the front of the room. Right now, we're going to be moving it to the general table after this presentation, but we have a list of contacts for specific members of our office, as well as specific program websites that we're going to be speaking about. So, the New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities does a number of things. First, we are a referral agency. So what that means is people will call us, people will email us, people will angrily tweet at us questions and issues that they're having, and we try and assist them the best we can by providing information to resources. This is ranges from housing programs to transportation, like a reduced fare Metro card or a parking permit. Benefits, we provide information on how to go about applying for benefits and what benefits you might qualify for, and as well as employment. In addition to that, we're also a policy office. So we work to make sure that the voice of the disability community in New York City is represented in everything the city is doing. And this includes also working with city council members and other folks to bring about legislation that can assist the disability community. And we're going to be talking about that as we go. And then finally, we have two programs that are actually pretty robust that come out of our office. The first is a program called Project Open House. This is a program that is a home modification program for people with disabilities living in New York City. This is something that you can apply for, and we'll do kinds of renovation projects that can assist people with disabilities living more independently in their own home. So this would, naturally, people start to think of like adding ramps, adding lifts and things, but also we work with each individual person. So for example, there was a woman who was low vision and she had trouble coming home at night because her stairs they were very jagged and crumbling, as well as she had a metal key and a lock for her door. So what we actually did was we went in and we renovated the stairs, made them brand new, put in a handrail for support, and then actually swapped out her locks for like a remote control key fob, so it was easier for her to get in. So the program really varies, so we highly encourage everyone to check it out. And you can find out more information on that at nyc.gov/POH, as in Project Open House. And the other program we have is called NYC at Work, and it's a employment initiative that I'm going to be getting into a little bit more later.
Somebody asked, can you repeat that URL for POH?
Oh, yes. nyc.gov/POH, as in Project Open House. nyc.gov/POH. Okay, so that's a little bit of information about our office. I'm going to turn it back over now to my colleague, Walei Sabry.
All right. So I forgot to mention earlier that I'm really excited to be here for a few reasons. I was actually once a CCVIP student where I learned, I took courses on Microsoft Access and PowerPoint and research and advocacy, and those things gave me the tools to get started and helped me get to where I am today. So I'm thankful to be here. And also I briefly worked for CCVIP. Almost 10 years ago, I presented at this conference, and finally, I'm a Baruch alumni, so I have a lot of reasons why this is a great place for me to be today. So, who am I? I'm Walei Sabry. I'm the Digital Accessibility Coordinator, and what that means is I'm tasked with helping city agencies make their digital content accessible, and I'll be explaining that in a minute.
Let me just step in and describe this slide, if that's okay. So this is, there's two images, one on the left, one on the right. The image on the left is actually a screenshot from nyc.gov's 311 website. And this is a website full of information and action that you can take. You can file complaints, you can check the status of a complaint, you can make payments, you can learn about business, education, environment, employment resources that New York City has to offer. So this is just a screenshot of the website. On the right-hand side is an image of Walei on his computer using a headset, doing the work that he does as a digital accessibility coordinator, which he will explain.
All right, so in March of 2016, the mayor signed Local Law 26, which requires city agencies to make a reasonable effort to make their websites accessible. As part of that, the Digital Accessibility Coordinator position was created. And you guys might remember Jenny talked about how having people with disabilities helps us make more accessible products. In the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, a lot of us do have disabilities, and that helps us improve the quality of our work. So I was hired as a Digital Accessibility Coordinator, and I'm tasked with the following. So there are over 50 city agencies that have websites on nyc.gov, and there are over 300 websites on nyc.gov, and those websites are associated with 50,000 different pages. So it's not a lot of work, not at all. So it's a tall order, obviously, and part of the work that I do is auditing websites. So I will go on, let's say, the Department of Finance website or emergency management, and I will test it, and I'll create a report and send it to the right people, and we'll start a process of going back and forth until those issues are remediated. And I currently have a spreadsheet on my computer. It has at least like 30 or 40 different websites that I'm working on. So at the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, or DOIT as we like to call it, we manage most of our websites, and we use a content management system called TeamSite. And that allows us to create a template or a shell for our websites right? So the DOIT team is managing that template. Now each individual agency pours in the content. So let's use a metaphor of a building. If our nyc.gov is a building, DOIT is sort of like the landlord and management, and each individual agency are like the tenants that move in and make that space theirs and add all the things and content. So there's a two-prong approach, right? So we have to work on our template, and we have been doing that. We have been doing things like adding support for alt text, right? Jenny mentioned that earlier as well. And how many of you guys are JAWS users and use headings? Awesome. So if you're a big fan of headings, our new template that we're transitioning to has much better support for headings, so you can navigate with headings much easier. And we're also talking to the content creators and making sure that they are including headings into the content that they create. We also ensure that there's keyboard access to all the links and the buttons, right? And we set up tools so that when content creators are creating forms, they're creating accessible forms, and they have the tools necessary to do so. So that's a little bit about the type of auditing that I'm doing. And part of that is I get a lot of the same questions over and over again. So in an attempt to sort of streamline the process, we've created some guides. Slide.
Image description. There are 6 rectangles noting guides, and they read as follows: Accessible Social Media Guide, Website Accessibility Guide, Accessible Documents Guide, Screen Reader Reference Guide, Accessible Presentations Guide, and PowerPoint Guide.
All right, so I've worked to create different guides. Most of them we've been circulating internally, right? So how do you create an accessible PowerPoint? So we stress the importance of things like including alt text in your PowerPoint, using accessible colors and having contrast, using accessible fonts, avoid having large blocks of text and using all caps, things like that. So we kind of break it down and make it easy to understand and follow for folks. And we distribute these to anyone who asks for them, but also we preemptively send it to folks that are creating inaccessible content. We also have document accessibility guide, web accessibility guide. We plan to finalize those and also make them public so we can share them with you guys and everyone who wants them. Currently, our social media guide is public, so it's on our website. It can be downloaded, and it just explains on how to create accessible social media posts on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So how to add alt text to your Twitter posts, how to add alt text to your Facebook posts, and how to add an image description on Instagram. So we find that these guides are helpful for folks and also help us save time. But to go along with these guides, we have also created some trainings.
New slide, digital accessibility trainings. Image of Walei standing on a podium in front of a screen as an auditorium of people looks on.
Kind of like right now. I believe that image has a slide in it as well.
This is now an image within an image, because it's a PowerPoint within a PowerPoint. The slide that is on the screen, in the screen, is a slide on forms. There are two images, two forms next to each other. On the left is your standard form that you would expect to interact with a label and a text box and a label and a text box. And on the right is a very inaccessible form with text boxes all squished together in the top left of the screen without labels.
So I find that a human approach is very helpful. So we try to make people understand why the accessibility work matters, and we try to do that by showing what it's like to have something inaccessible to you. So those slides are showing what it's like to have a form that has no labels and is just hard to navigate and understand. In a similar way, I actually like to do this activity when I start trainings by handing a sighted person a sheet of Braille and asking them to read it. And it is a lot of fun because they're like, I don't know what this is, and I'm like, this is words, and they're like, I'll ask them, what can you read? You don't read Braille, what do you read? And then they're like, I read English. And I'm like, yeah, this is Unified English Braille. So I try to sort of demonstrate what it's like to have something inaccessible to you, and also, go through the social aspect of it, of telling them, print, is that the thing with the ink? Kind of like when they're like, Braille, is that the thing with the bumps? Or people have actually asked me before, calling Braille sign language before. This happened. And also then I direct them to a form that I found on the internet that actually is screen reader accessible but has no visual labels. And that's also a lot of fun because I'll tell them, here, fill out your form. It says name right next to it, and they're like, I don't see it. So, we have fun with it, but we also sort of try to drive the point across that access is important, and it can be a bad experience for somebody. And it could be a daily experience for people with disabilities to have to experience, go through these barriers and ask for things ahead of time and all of that. And we incorporate that into our practices. We were actually just at the Andrew High Scale Library yesterday, and we brought plenty of large print and Braille flyers, right? And we got a lot of good feedback in the end. So we also have Braille and large print flyers today. So be sure to pick one up. It has our contact info. All right, so trainings, right? So we have created different types of trainings in different groups. We have a digital inclusion committee, which is a group of city professionals interested in learning more about making their websites accessible. So we have had 4 or 5 different meetings so far, and our goal is to take the daunting task of web accessibility or digital accessibility and turn it into bite-sized lessons. So we started at the very beginning. We started with a brief summary of the report that we published last year on our web accessibility, which is on our website. You can download it. And explaining, where the state of our websites is at, and also our plan to get to a place where we'd like to be with accessibility on our websites. And we also taught them about the guidelines that we use. So there is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0, which have been adopted internationally, right? And we sort of break those down and explain to them that these are the guidelines that we're using and give them resources to follow up if they need to learn more about them, right? And as we move towards the new guidelines 2.1, we are also looking forward to those and adopting those as well. Another topic that we covered is Intruder assistive technology and how to use a screen reader to test the website so that our content creators and developers know a little bit about testing, right? So that they can maybe, if they create a Word document or a PDF, that they can try to at least go read it with a screen reader and see if it's reading the alt text and things like that. Another one was alt text. So we had a whole 1.5 hour session on alt text and image descriptions and just teaching folks how to technically add them, but also how to conceptually add them, right? How do you craft a good description of an image? And we created guidance around this. We gave them 4 simple questions to answer, which is basically, where is this taken? How many people are in the photo? What are they doing? And what's the importance of this photo? And answering those 4 questions, we find, will help you craft a good description. And our final topic, which was last month in March, we had a whole session on creating accessible forms. And we focused particularly on the platform that we used, TeamSite. So we showed them exactly how to make an accessible form and what they need to include. So that includes, making sure it has keyboard accessibility, making sure it has text labels, and making sure that the required fields are noted in an accessible way, whether it's a star or using ARIA, and error validation. So if somebody made a mistake in the form, they should be able to get some kind of simple message on what they did wrong and how to fix it, right? So that's the Digital Inclusion Committee, and we're going to continue to have these bite-sized classes for city employees. And we're going to cover things like maps and how to work with large sets of data and color contrast and other topics as well. So I've also been doing some intro to digital accessibility trainings for agencies specifically. So right now, for instance, I'm talking to city planning, and they're interested in having me come in and do a digital accessibility training for their marketing and communications team and their developers. So this is a great thing because we also get to tailor the training to what their needs are. So if they want to learn about websites, I can do that. If they want to cover web apps, we can cover that. Or if their specific interest is in documents, we can cover that. We've also done trainings on audio description and captioning for videos. So those are happening as well. We've started doing trainings at Do It for content creators. So those are the people that are actually not managing the template themselves, but actually putting the content in there. So the words, the images, the colors, right? So making sure that they're including headings, making sure that they're putting in good alt text for their images, making sure that they're using accessible colors and fonts. And so on and so forth. And these are actually happening on a weekly basis. There's around 2 or 3 of those trainings happening a week at Do It. And therefore, they're small, intimate trainings for about 4 or 5 people at a time, so they kind of get that individual attention and get to ask all the questions that they need so that they learn how to make their websites accessible. Next slide.
So this is an image of a room full of people in a few different rows of tables having discussions over food. The text on the bottom says accessibility events, and the text in the middle says digital access and inclusion.
All right, so we find that teaching people things takes a lot of repetition. So we've taken all the stuff that we've done and added onto it, and we're actually organizing a day-long conference for our city employees, around 150 of them. It's going to be in May 17th on Global Accessibility Awareness Day, where we're going to cover a lot of the same topics that we've already covered and new ones. So just, more of the same in terms of just making sure that we're really drilling this into people's heads. Next slide.
So, I'm going to describe this slide in a second. So, obviously, we've been talking a lot about what we have been doing to work with city agencies to ensure that they are creating accessible content. We've created guides, we've created trainings, and we've held events. And we have started to see, or we have been seeing more and more results of people actually internalizing this training. So this is an image of a social media post. On the left is an image that was posted on Facebook. On the right is the text that accompanied it. So I'm actually going to read the text on the right first. This is from New York City Emergency Management, February 15th. Oh no, say it ain't snow. It's been a mild day today, but we are looking at a return to winter weather this weekend. If you are traveling during this long weekend, stay safe. Image description. If you must travel during winter weather, exercise caution, allow for extra time, and anticipate delays. Use mass transportation whenever possible. If you have to drive, drive slowly, and use major streets or highways. These roadways will be cleared first. nyc.gov/emergency management. So that's one example of city agencies. Huge shout outs to New York City Emergency Management and Department of Transportation, DOT. They've been taking the lead, I think, on internalizing these accessibility image descriptions and making sure that their social media is accessible, and more gaining steam, but we are seeing results in our correspondence from our city partners, our fellow city agencies. So not only this, but in videos as well. Walei and I have also been working to make sure that video content is accessible as well, not only through subtitling, captioning, but audio description. So if it's okay with everybody, I'm just going to play a little clip from a video that New York City Emergency Management put together.
Disabilities, access, and functional needs. Inside an apartment, a woman pours herself a glass of water.
The storm is scheduled to make a direct hit on New York City, which will result in dangerous storm surges, Category 5 level winds, and widespread power outages.
She looks at her TV.
A mandatory evacuation for residents in Zone 1 and 2 is expected, and you can visit newyorkcity.gov for the evacuation.
This is a message from New York City Emergency Management to Alex Guerra. You have been assigned to work at Sheltering System Q01. You will report to the evacuation center at Townsend Harris High School, located at 149-11 Melbourne Avenue in Queens. The first shift begins at 8 a.m. on August 30th. Thank you for your support of New York City and its residents.
She hangs up and dials another number.
Hey, Mom.
So this is a 13-minute video. I imagine we probably can't do the whole thing. I think that it got a little bit clipped in the beginning. I apologize for that, but this is actually a video, a fully audio described video of emergency shelter information that New York City Emergency Management has put out, and we've worked with them to create audio description and taught them, so we don't have to assist them every time, but they will be continuing to do this. Same thing with Department of Transportation. So if you want to check out the remaining 13 minutes of this very riveting video, you can go to nyc.gov/emergency management and learn about shelters, because that's very important.
And unlike Microsoft, we don't get to hire a team just to focus on audio description, so we have to do what we can in terms of just teaching all these different agencies and communications team to do it, and then revisiting it until they do it. So, but also, we are promoting a culture of accessibility within city government with all our trainings and guides. And some of the results of that is, like I said, these trainings that are happening every week. And some of these trainings are now not led by me. They're actually led by folks at Do It. There's actually a training happening right now without me on how to create accessible content for content creators.
All right. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So we've talked a lot about accessible communication. And access is a very big part of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. We want to ensure that all city information, city resources is accessible. And this doesn't just stop at the actual communication, but extends further into that, into the actual city agencies themselves. So this image, there's two images next to each other. On the left-hand side, there's Mayor Bill de Blasio signing a bill, surrounded by a few council members. And on the right-hand side, there's a number of city agency logos: New York City Emergency Management, New York City Human Rights, Department of Homeless Services, NYPD, and several others. At the bottom, the title is Disability Service Facilitators. So as a result of Local Law 27 of 2016, each city agency is now required to appoint what's called a Disability Service Facilitator. Now what this is a point of contact, a public-facing point of contact for the community to address disability-specific issues. So they not only are responsible for, this kind of correspondence, but ensuring that their agency is within, compliance and is striving toward compliance. Now, these points of contact are not just, public-facing figures, which they are, but they are a network of colleagues of ours that we meet with routinely and update on best practices, not only on accessible communication, but how to make their agency more accessible. Now, I want to note that every single point of contact on this every single disability service facilitator for each agency has a public-facing point of contact, which is available at nyc.gov/DSF. That's nyc.gov/DSF. DSF as in Disability Service Facilitator. So this means that if you have, let's say, a disability-specific issue with HPD, there's a DSF for that. If you have a disability-specific issue with Taxi and Limousine Commission, or NYPD, or Emergency Management, or Human Rights, or over 50 agencies, there is a specific point of contact that is public-facing available at nyc.gov/DSF. And there's both a phone number and an email of the person that you can get in contact with. So, in addition to that, so the new slide, Accessible Meeting Notice Guide. On the left-hand side, there's a booklet that says Meeting Notice Guide, and on the right, there's an image of a physical accessibility icon, person in a wheelchair, and a sentence that says, "For accommodation requests, please contact blank." So in 2016, Local Law 28 was passed. A lot of good local laws in 2016, which was a law that was passed that pertained to adding accessibility information into public events that were being held by city agencies. So if a city agency is holding a public event, it doesn't matter if it costs money or if it's free, if it's open to the general public, they are required to add accessibility information on all of their advertisements about what will be available at that event. So this starts with physical accessibility. You could say, saying that the event will be held in a physical location, a physically accessible location, an accessible restroom, but also the availability of such things as, Braille or audio description. In certain cases, we work with, Department of Cultural Affairs. There might be like an art exhibit that's being held, so like tactile tours, touch-guided tours, and things like that. So that's just one small example of like what is at first needs to be available. Second is a point of contact for individuals to reach out to ask questions and to make accommodation requests. So you can reach out and ask for the availability of these things or make a request that all the materials are available in Braille or the videos that are being played do have audio description. So this is something that we have been educating people. We have created an accessible meeting notice guide that's available on our website that teaches city agencies and anyone, really, everyone, hopefully, how to go about doing this and the best practices for it, because we want to make sure all events that are being held in New York City are available and open to everyone in New York City, and this is how we start doing that.
And we need your help with that. If you do see an advertisement, if you encounter an advertisement by a city agency for a public event that doesn't have this information, get in touch with us. Let us know so we can correct that.
Yes. Thank you. Oh,
we're not done.
I didn't think so.
What'd you say? Okay, well, in addition to that, a great way to do that is the previous slide, the Disability Service Facilitators. So if you see that there's an event being held by a city agency that doesn't have this information, you can reach directly to the Disability Service Facilitator. And tell us too, we want to help also, but okay, so this next slide is accessible dispatch. On the bottom right, there's an image of a gentleman who is shaking hands with a person who is in a wheelchair standing in front of a taxi cab. On the left-hand side, there's some text that describes what accessible dispatch is. It's a wheelchair accessible taxi service. It services customers in all 5 boroughs 24/7 on demand and reserved. And you can find out more information at accessibleddispatch.com. So accessible dispatch is a wheelchair accessible taxi service that you can order at any time to come to the front of your door, which is great because it's TLC. I'm talking about yellow and green cabs specifically that are offering wheelchair accessible forms of transportation. You can reserve a cab and call a cab to you by dialing 311. You can visit their website, accessibleddispatch.com, or you can download their app, Accessible Dispatch, on Google Play or the App Store on your iPhone.
And part of the work that I do is making sure that those things are accessible, the website and the app, and we're currently going through them with the folks at MTM, the vendor, to make sure that they fix things so that they are screen reader accessible and accessible using accessible colors and fonts and things like that. Now you might be saying, well, I don't need a wheelchair accessible cab, I'm a blind person. You don't have to be a wheelchair user to use this service. Anyone can call a cab and that cab will come and pick them up where they're at and take them to their destination. You can book a cab. It just has the added benefit of providing a wheelchair accessible cab. They also have cabs that have induction loops. So for those who have hearing disabilities, you can request a specific cab that uses an induction loop so you can use your hearing aid or whatever device they use.
Great, thank you, Wally. So this next slide is an image of a woman who is using a white cane who is crossing a street in the middle of Manhattan.
Do you have the audio?
And the bottom is Call for Innovations. And we have an audio clip that goes along with this image.
Does this sound familiar?
Yeah?
Wait. 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 Wait.
All right, so hopefully that's a recognizable sound. So those are the accessible pedestrian signals. How many of you guys use them? Well, they're there for those who want to use them, right? So those are helpful. Some people find them helpful, some people don't, right? But we are trying to increase the amount of those that there are in the city. Unfortunately, the current infrastructure, or the current vendor that we use, places that in such a way where it's super expensive for us to do so. So we end up only installing around 75 to 100 a year, and there are thousands of intersections in New York City. So what we're doing about that is we're trying to innovate. In November, we put out a call for innovations to the tech community, right? We posed a problem to them, right? And and that problem is, how do we create a cost-effective way for blind people to cross the street? And also, how do we invest in the future technology that is going to help blind people find their way around the city? So this could be an app, it could be a wearable, or it could be something in the infrastructure, right? But we focused on creating this solution, and this will result in a pilot that will be happening in the next 6 months to a year on 23rd Street and 7th Avenue. And we will be looking to you guys for testing, right? So we will be reaching out to you guys so that when it is installed, that you guys can test it and let us know what you think of it. I'm actually on the judging committee. We're choosing the finalists now. And we're keeping a lot of folks in mind with this. We're not just focusing on the most high-tech solution or the power users. We're making sure that whatever the solution we come up with is inclusive of people with all sorts of abilities or ranges, right? So some people don't like to use smartphones. So our solution is not going to only be a smartphone solution, right? Some people don't have access to wearables, right? So we will be making sure that our solution is both affordable and accessible to a wide range of people in the blind community. So be on the lookout for that. You guys might have also seen the Nyc Kiosks or heard about them. Those are replacing the phone booths. And just to be honest and upfront, when they first came out, they were not accessible, right? And there was some legal stuff around that, right? So we helped the intersection team along with the NFB, and we gave them feedback on how to enable talkback so that folks with who are blind can use them. So right now, if you walk up to any of these kiosks and plug in headphones, you will receive instructions on how to enable talkback. And we've even worked with them so that they've created keyboard shortcuts or keypad shortcuts so that if you don't want to use the screen, you can actually use the buttons to navigate around and get the information that you want from the kiosk. And it does it gives you the ability to make free phone calls, right? So that's great. And that feature is accessible currently. You can also dial 911. There are other apps on there like Google Maps and 311, which we are working on addressing in terms of accessibility because they don't work so well with TalkBack, and we're aware of that. So that is what's going on in streets. Slide.
Sure. So this slide is called NYC at Work. There is a logo, the NYC at Work logo. It's an apple with a silhouette of a cityscape, and the text reads NYC at Work. The first public-private partnership to create career pathways for New Yorkers with disabilities. Now, this is an employment program that launched about a year ago in our office that works to help people with disabilities, connecting people with disabilities with jobs. We have a business development council. We have a number of partners of agencies, well, not only city agencies, but public and private businesses, Barclays Center, handful of stuff. JetBlue is a very big one. CVS, Uniqlo, and lots of others. So, and on the other end, we have schools. We have colleges, public colleges. We have Baruch and a handful of all the other CUNYs that are, working with people with disabilities to connect them with jobs. But it's not just for college students. It's for people with disabilities that are looking for gainful employment, whether that's a part-time position or a full-time position. This is a person-centered program. This is not just connecting a person with disability with any job and moving on, but focusing on the specific goals and the specific aspirations of the person with a disability and giving them the resources to make them job ready and connect them with that job. If anyone is interested or in learning more about the program, in referring other people to the program, in becoming a part of the program for yourself, you can find out more information at nyc.gov/@work. That's nyc.gov/@work. And as my colleague mentioned before, we have a contact sheet, both available in large print and Braille at the table in front of me, and it's going to be available at the table with all the other handouts after our presentation, that has a handful of the URLs, the website addresses that we've been listing, as well as email addresses to get in contact with our the specific sections of our office. But that's nyc.gov/@work. We highly encourage you to get involved. We'd love to have you.
So we did have limited time today. We didn't get to cover everything that we wanted to cover, but everything that we do for you guys in the city every year, we publish in an annual report called Accessible NYC, and that comes out usually around the summertime. We've had 3 so far, and we basically include all of this information and more in terms of what we're doing to make this a more accessible city for people with disabilities. And it does cover all the areas including housing, transportation, access to city services, and education as well. So you can find out more about that and download the report at nyc.gov/accessible-nyc.
So we have just a few more minutes before we open it up to questions. I just want to say a few more things. So we have one more program. This is actually a partnership with City Community Development, Citibank, which is called Empowered Cities. Empowered Cities is a nationwide initiative to build financial security for people and families with disabilities. I'm sorry, let me describe the slide. It's Empowered Cities. It's an E and a C that's meant to look like a graph, like financial graph. Empowered Cities, building financial security for people and families with disabilities, and the website address is empoweredcities.com. Now, this is another part of NYC at Work where we're gearing to build financial empowerment with people with disabilities, empowering people with disabilities to plan financially for their future. So this is, it's complicated. It gets very complicated. If someone is, let's say, depending on benefits and Social Security and wants to re-enter the workforce and isn't sure how without jeopardizing their benefits, this is a program that can help you plan for that and navigate that chaotic environment, because it is. So this is a new program of ours, and we're happy to be partnering with Citi. Our specific division is called Empowered NYC, but you can learn more at empoweredcities.com, empoweredcities.com, empoweredcities.com. So that is pretty much the end of our presentation. One more plug. We have a Disability Pride Parade that's coming up. Has anyone marched in the parade previously? All right.
All right.
Great. So Disability Pride Parade. We are coming up on our fourth Disability Pride Parade, which is excellent. First year we had 3,000. Second year we had 5,000. Last year we had 7,500. This year we are looking for 7,501. We want to build. We want to get bigger every year, and you could be that one. So please come out. Have a great time. It's going to be
And when is it, John?
It's July 15th. That's on a Sunday. It's at 11 a.m. You can find out more information at nyc.gov/disabilitypride.
Where do we march from to and to?
We march from Union Square Park to Madison Square Park. It's July 15th. That's a Sunday. It starts at 11 a.m. July 15th. You can find out more information at nyc.gov/disabilitypride.
Now, Jonathan and Walei gave us a lot of information, so I'm sure some of you guys have some questions, so I wanted to make sure we had time for questions. Who has some questions? Lady in the pink.
Iris, we got microphones.
Oh, there's microphones? If anyone who feels comfortable, you guys are going to pass the microphones? Go ahead. Okay, lady in the pink. You want to say your name, by the way?
Jewel Grant.
Hi, Jewel.
Hi. You spoke about the project Open House. In regard to the project Open House,
Yes.
is it a grant program in regard to fixing up your house or helping with your house, or how would that work?
The project is funded, the project itself is funded by the federal block development, federal community development
block grant?
Block grant, yes, that's how it's funded, but it is at no cost to the individual that is applying, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
As long as they meet the income requirements. There are requirements for Project Open House. So if anyone is interested, the process will be starting July 1st, 2018 for applications. It is a vast program, and you can actually reach it. If anyone has Project Open House questions, there's an email, a specific email that you can actually address those questions to. It's poh@cityhall.nyc.gov. This is available on the handout that we have here.
Okay. And where are the handouts?
The handouts are right in front of the podium where I am, at the front of the room. There are large print and braille handouts that have that information.
We'll leave the handouts also in the vendor area as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
There's some other questions? Lots of questions. Okay, lady in the black sweater in the front, you. Want to say your name, please?
Sure. Hi, my name is Barbara. Is there a general... Okay, all right. Is there a general department if you think you have legal issues or just are interested in the legality of certain conduct, whether it's in your home or in your business? Is there such a phone number or department?
So it depends on the issue. So like if you reach out to us with issue regarding housing, we might share with you some legal resources like housing court answers. But if it's a discrimination issue, then you can definitely file a complaint with the City Commission on Human Rights.
How do you know if it's a discrimination issue?
Well, if it's an issue that you think you're being targeted because of your disability or because of your race or gender,
Right.
then it's a discrimination issue. If it's an issue of somebody or a landlord, let's say, not providing access
Right.
for you, that's a
What
discrimination.
department would you call?
That is the City Commission on Human Rights. You can get in touch with them by dialing 311. 311, yep. You're welcome.
Okay, more questions here? Man in the gray sweater in the front.
Hi, I'm Rick Fox, and I'd like to know how we can find out, if we can find out which streets are being either considered or designated for installation of audio traffic signals.
Sure. So on the Department of Transportation website, they do have a list of the current existing APSs. You can also contact their commissioner to request one in your area. As well, on top of that, you can get in touch with DOT or their mobility management team to find out more information.
Okay, some more questions? I saw a bunch of hands. In the middle with the black sweater. You, yeah. Hi. Oh wait, I think I got her. Then I'll get you. Cool.
We'll make sure Lynette is next.
People in black, you know. Sorry. I'll get you next. I promise.
Hi, I'm Kathy Beater. You said you have a lot of material up there. I don't read Braille or see large print. Is there any way to get it in electronic format?
Definitely.
Sure. Maybe John can take your contact info. We can email that to you.
Yep, be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, black and pink.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, sweetie.
The kiosks Lynette Tatum.
Hi,
Lynette.
Hello, all. Now, the kiosks, how do we find them if we're out in the street? Or do we go to the 311 and it'll give a list of locations? Thank you.
You can always dial 311, but also I don't remember the website for the Nyc NYC kiosks, but they do have a list of all of them there. So if you Google, Nyc NYC or something like that.
More questions? All the way in the back, another black sweater person. Okay, in the middle there. Yeah, you, sorry.
Kathy Schnapper. I hope this isn't off topic. I want to say that the city of New York and the state of New York have really been terrific. I've had great experiences dealing with the various agencies. Where I've had a terrible time is with the federal government, ADA Act notwithstanding. And I'd like to touch on the expertise of the people in the room. Are there any points of contact if we're having trouble with a federal agency? I'm having terrible time with Department of Education, Department of Finance, and Social Security. Thank you.
So, generally, for federal government, we recommend maybe reaching out to the Department of Justice or the Access Board. They're there for that reason. In terms of what we're able to do as a city, we're able to focus on making sure that city agencies are, being accessible and providing services.
No, I realize
so.
It's not your bailiwick so much, but
Yeah.
your expertise. What do you do when you run into trouble with trying to get the federal government to be responsive?
Well, I would do what anyone else would do. I would reach out to the Department of Justice and put in a complaint that way.
We also, on a more direct basis, we can also connect with you afterward to see if we can provide additional resources. If you want to meet us after, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, person in the red polo.
Hi, it's Facilitator. How y'all doing?
Hey, how are you?
My question is really within the confines of the MTA / accessoride. Does that fall within your purview?
Stressoride.
Accessoride, a stressoride is more like it.
That's what I said.
Are you the agency, could we go through you to lodge our complaints? Because quite honestly, I feel as though...
We can certainly try to assist. MTA is a state agency. We are in touch with them. We are constantly giving them feedback. We do collaborate with them on certain projects. But in terms of, we can only pass on information. We do field complaints for accessoride. So if you have a accessoride complaint and you file it first with them and give us a ticket number, we can follow up with them.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question because I think we're supposed to end at 11:45. Does that sound right? So who would like to speak? Oh, there's a lady with a microphone. Go ahead, black and white and orange. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Say your name, please.
My name is Eleanor Cohen, and I would like to know what you recommend we do about subtitles and making them accessible for people who can't read them. This happens in films frequently. Foreign films have been eliminated. I have not been able to find a way to compensate for it. It's a tremendous loss in the cultural and educational area, and it would also assist people who don't have disabilities, who might have trouble reading quickly. It requires a huge amount of skill, and as we know, whenever anything is done for the disabled community, it helps everybody.
That is correct. And that's actually a great question. This is something that has gotten some attention, or more work in access recently. So in terms of subtitles, I have experienced audio description where it's in a foreign language and, there's two audio describers, one describing what's happening and one reading the subtitles. So that is something that is there, and it's an option. There's also, iOS is now supporting the reading out of subtitles. So if you have an iPhone, you can have your subtitles read out loud by VoiceOver. iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, right, and you're watching a video on an iPhone that has subtitles, VoiceOver, the screen reader that's built into that iPhone, can actually read them out loud.
Now, I think we're supposed to end at 1:45, but you guys will be around for a little bit?
We'll be around for a little bit. If you guys want to ask us some questions, we'll be in front here handing out some flyers if you haven't gotten one. And we'll be leaving flyers also in the vendor area.
And I just wanted to thank both Jonathan and Walei. They did a great job.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Thank you to CCVIP and Karen.
For being here.
Hi, my name's Heather Schultz. We just finished the Accessible in New York workshop at the conference, and I am a professor at Baruch. I teach speech communication and also am a proud alumna of Baruch. And we have...
Hi, I'm Dr. Gene Bourquin with the PASS Coalition here in the city. We try to make sure that the city streets remain accessible for blind and visually impaired people. I was a mobility specialist for about 25 years at the National Center on Deaf Blindness, and it's been a terrific conference so far.
Thank you, Gene. So, given the amount of resources that we learned in this Accessible New York workshop, there's going to be a disability pride parade, there are many guides, there are trainings. What else would you like to see New York City do for the community?
That's a really good question. I'm looking forward to marching in my next disability pride parade. I have a visual impairment myself and consider myself part of the community. I think one of the things that we want to do these days is to make sure that New York City, which has a history of being a very accessible and wonderful place for people who are blind to travel, we want to keep it accessible. These days, there's been so many rapid changes in our streetscape. The bicycle lanes, the new turning lanes that the DOT is putting in, different signaling systems that are putting in and moving traffic more quickly. A lot of those changes have an impact on people with visual impairments and blind people. And we want to make sure that whatever the city does and whatever the state does, they keep it as accessible for us as it is for everybody else.
And not to put you on the spot, but if you, on a scale from 1 to 10, what rating would you give New York City in terms of access for the community, in terms of the infrastructure and digitally?
Well, that is a tough question. New York City is usually a 9 or a 10. These days, maybe a little less so. But I would give kudos to a lot of the agencies that have been very cooperative with the PASS Coalition. The Department of Transportation has worked with us. We meet with them regularly. They've had open minds and they've listened to our concerns. And they have done their best to implement programs that are keeping the city accessible. And the MTA has done a pretty good job too. We have some issues, ongoing issues in keeping the cities accessible, keeping the accessible pedestrian signals working. And so there are issues there, intergovernmental agency issues that we're dealing with. Connecting the DOT, the police department, the anti-terrorists folks, and all these people aware of the needs of blind people as they build new systems to keep New Yorkers safe.
Thank you so much, Gene. So Walei, he's a digital accessibility coordinator, and given his own tie to New York City, he's also a Baruch alum, so he holds New York City agencies accountable and making sure that their content, their digital content, is accessible. But besides Walei holding the New York City government agencies accountable, what can the community do to get involved?
Well, first I would say, I'm also a proud Baruch graduate. I graduated with my BS. My home college was Baruch. I graduated through the CUNY BA program. So I spent some time here at Baruch myself, and very happy for that. You know, speaking about what Walei was talking about, the most interesting thing to me is what they're developing with the street crossing apps and keeping those things as accessible to New Yorkers. You know, a lot of us in the blind and visually impaired communities, we're not all facile with smartphones. You know, we can't all buy a $1,000 iPhone X. So we want to make sure that the technology is as accessible and easy to access for everybody in the community. And of course, accessible pedestrian signals installed at corners, the devices that make sounds, are the best option. That said, The community can be involved by contacting us at the PASS Coalition and getting involved with us, because we are a coalition of blindness professionals, O&M instructors, and members of the blindness and visually impaired communities and other people with disabilities. So contacting us is one way to keep the community involved. And the other thing is to show up when the city has hearings. Show up and let the city know what your needs are. Go to the community board meetings in your areas. All those things keep the city entities aware of our needs.
Thank you, Gene. So there's a lot of Baruch pride in the room. I also am an alumna of Baruch. I have my bachelor's in journalism and my master of public administration from this fine college. So a lot of Baruch pride.
Is there anything else you want to add?
You addressed all my questions. Were there any other takeaways that you would like to share with those tuning into the live stream? Thank you very much.
I'll just end with a mention of our website, PASS Coalition, one word, .org. And there you'll find our contact information. If you have questions about accessible pedestrian signals or the other things the city is doing, let us know, because we'd like to be a voice for the community that connects well with the city, and we think we're doing that. And thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, Gene, and thank you to our live stream audience.